Hello everyone, today I'll be sharing some project ideas, practical project ideas that I created 2 years ago, but I forgot or I was too naive to not create a video because I thought people like to read, that's pretty naive to think that. So I'm finally decided to create a video on these project ideas and I'll explain them and go over them. So the first one, which you should do, is create a website or portfolio using raw HTML or CSS and little to none vanilla JavaScript. Okay, you can use Flask for the backend. Flask is a Python web framework. I found that it's easier to use than Django. You could also use something like Bottle, but I don't use Bottle. So Flask is really my recommendation. Fast API is more for APIs, so I don't really recommend it yet. Now you can use Heroku once you've created this app to host it. You'll need a proc file, so you can see my website source code here for the proc file over here. So then you know how to host it. And my website's hosted on Heroku, so it's really nice as well. I created this website a long time ago, but I've updated it, I've kept it updated, and I've optimized it a lot over the years. So that's why I recommend this is the on the top of the list to create a website because it'll teach you a lot. Next up is an easy task. So if you are not an intermediate yet, you should, or if you're really a beginner, so you shouldn't even, if you're a beginner, you're probably doing projects to test yourself. Now, this is a project to test yourself because if someone told me they know Python and I don't think they know Python to a good level, this is the project I'd tell them to do. And basically, oh, I didn't even give a description, but the description is very simple. You blur an image, so the user runs your program. You tell them, give me the location of a file. You blur the file and you save it to the downloads folder or something. Okay, it's very simple. On purpose, I've not given instructions on how to do it. You have to figure that out because a large aspect of programming is learning new things. And to learn new things, you have to be good at using your resources. And your resources, I'll give you these at least, is the internet. So YouTube, Google, DuckDuckGo, Stack Overflow, articles, anything like that. And what you want to do is reduce the amount of money you spent. So you should be able to do this free. You shouldn't need to pay for books or anything. And yeah. Now, to add difficulty, you can create a graphic user interface for your program instead of running it as a CLI. And this will mean that when you run it, it'll be, you can click it easier. If if the person if I ask this to a person and the way they coded it, they might have coded it fast enough. So I think an expert could do this in 10 minutes or less. And if you're a beginner, you might take an hour or even might not even be able to do it. Who knows? But yeah, and if I think something is a bit off because this is supposed to be an easy task, so it's not supposed to be like if you can do this, you're a good programmer. Like that's not it. So if someone's able to do this really easily, it just means that they're not a bad programmer or not a beginner in my opinion. So then you would ask them to create a graphic user interface, and this could take any amount of time. It's not about that. It could be really simple. Who knows? The idea here would be to gauge how they do it, not really how long they take. So, yeah, this is just extra stuff. Now comes a desktop wall setter. I'll give you the background for this. Basically, before I had created my wallpapers, I had a folder with a bunch of nice wallpapers. So I thought one day, hey, I wish there's an easy way to cycle the wallpapers in this directory, or maybe it's actually possible in Windows already. So I just thought it was a good project idea at the time. And so I wrote it down and I published it in this list. Basically, your simple program would change the desktop wallpaper for a file selected. So if the user enters a file, your program will set the wallpaper to it. Now, that's very easy in my opinion. It's just a Stack Overflow question. To something a bit easier is something a little less easier is you cycle through a folder of images and set the desktop wallpaper every 30 minutes or so. I gave 1 minute here to speed up debugging to test if it works. And now, because it says cycle, you might use a while true loop, but if you want to learn some new things, search up iter tools and cycle. Yeah, that's a interesting thing. Next, if you're on Linux, this is less of a Python thing, but create a cron job for it and to see if it works or not, and then remove that cron tab file after you're done with it. And if you're on Windows, you create a task in the task scheduler. Now, something even harder is automation. So in Bash or Python, automate the installation of a cron job. I can guarantee you that you will not get this because, yeah, you will not get this. The answers on Stack Overflow or Stack Exchange are wrong. They will fail, and there are corner cases for them to fail. So that's why I suggest this is not even, you will not get this, okay? I spent a lot of time perfecting it. So I'll tell you what my solution has so that when you do it, you think of all these corner cases as well. If you don't want to hear my corner cases, it's okay. But one corner case is the file does not exist. Another corner case is that the job already exists. Okay, another case is that the file exists, but the job does not exist. So that's actually two of them combined. Another case is that you might want to, did I say the job already exists? Okay, so step one. So one corner case is the file itself does not exist. Second case is the job exists. The third case is that there are many jobs and the job does not exist. So you need to make sure that when you add the cron job, you aren't clearing the other jobs. And that's three of them. And the fourth thing is that you want to prevent concurrent runs. So suppose you had a file that is supposed to be run every minute, but the task it does could take more than a minute. You want to prevent concurrent runs, overlapping runs. So that's four things you have to watch out for. And my solution takes care of all four of those things. So it's in my blog. You can take a look at it if you have trouble. This is really hard. I don't even suggest you do it. I suggest you just think about it for 5 minutes or so and look at the solution. It's not going to help you at anything. So it's just a challenge. It's not even something you need to be doing. Just a challenge because you probably won't need it. I need it because I want to automate my deployment workflow. So I'm at that level. So you know where I'm thinking from. Now the next thing is web scraping and data parsing. So I actually updated this recently. Do not read all of this. I'm not going to do it, but basically go to the CIA fact book, something like this with a table. And today you can download this as a CSV, but back in I don't even remember, but a couple of years ago, I think 4, 5, 6 years ago, probably 4 years ago, my friend, we were doing a project in economics or something, and my friend wanted the data was in a text file, and the separation was spaces, and my friend he paid me to convert that text file into a CSV file. So that's the only reason I'm giving this as a task, because I've actually done it before, and I have to modify the task now because of this. But basically, you go on here and using Beautiful Soup 4, you can parse these things into a CSV file. This is just to teach you some basic Beautiful Soup web parsing. Oh, wait, web scraping. Okay. Just to teach you some simple stuff like that. you can go one step ahead and also make a CSV reader. Oh, okay, yeah. So I already give you some hints there. But anyways, this is something if you're, yeah, okay. I think that's good enough as an explanation. I'll update this paragraph, by the way. Next, we have using a REST API. And what you can do to learn this is use the Spotify API. It's a really good place to start for APIs in general because there's not really much else. Everyone listens to music, so that's why I think it's really easy. It's a good place to start. Now, you have to create a Spotify account or something to get the API key. Oh, for some reason it's not linked anymore, but I had a link there for you to go to. Hmm. Okay, but anyways, yeah, create a Spotify key from their website. You can click here and then you can, yeah, I don't even, yeah, I'm not, I don't, you know what, I'm not going to show you how to do that. You can figure it out. Now, the hard thing is do this task without a predefined Spotify API key. It's possible because I've done it, I do it. Do not share how you do it because the method will get patched otherwise. So do not share how you do it, but just note that you can do it and it's hard. So it's a challenge. I don't expect you to do it. It's just think about if you need to do it, could you do it, Don't actually do it if you don't need to. That's the kind of thing when I say hard, do it only if you want to. Don't do it for the sake of a challenge. Just do it for a challenge. Don't actually do it to achieve something. Wait. I'm not sure. It's just optional. It's hard and optional. That's what I meant to say. Now, see search API reference and make a program that lets users search for tracks using the Spotify API. Okay, and I think what I meant with this is that the user enters a track or a playlist. Oh, wait, no. The user enters a search query and you just return a list of tracks for it. And I have a demo here for getting album art for an artist and a track name. So you search here and you get the album art. So it's really nice. But you just need to print out the list of tracks if you want. And then for intermediate difficulty, sort the tracks by popularity. You'll have to search the documentation yourself for what I mean by that. You can use sorted or sort and use a lambda instead of a function for a key. But if the sorting function gets really big as a lambda, then I suggest you use a function instead. But just learn how to use lambdas. You could probably also learn filter here. And to make this even harder, add options to sort by other fields like artist, feature, etc. The next thing on my list is emailing. So you can send emails using Python. This is way easier in 2022 than in 2017. In 2022, the answers on the internet are very straightforward. But back when I was programming, when I started programming, it was not straightforward. So it was actually a bit harder back then than it is now. So the first task is really easy. It's always been easy, even back then, is to send a simple message with a subject. The next one is to send up to 3 attachments and a text body. I say this because sending a simple message is easy. Sending an attachment, now this is where things get a bit harder. And then sending an attachment with body, that's even harder. And then setting more than one attachment just to make sure it works. And then another one is send the HTML body. I added this part here for just the entire thing. And if you're using a Gmail account, you might have to change your security settings because I remember trying this later on with a Gmail account and I had to change some settings to use Python to send an email. The next thing is a keylogger. So this is for educational purposes. I'm not gonna tell you how to make a keylogger for production or something. So I don't really want to, but this part just educational wise. You create a so your keylogger will basically just append the contents to a log file, or you can use the logger, the built-in logger module, to append the contents, the text. And a bit harder is also include copied and pasted items with custom syntax. Yeah, this is a bit of a. I'm really telling you how to make a keylogger here, or how to design a keylogger. But that's fine. As long as you're not distributing it, it's fine. I would not be happy if someone was doing that. Next is make a soundboard with your own sounds. This is a task for people who want to create something to be remembered or an open source project. This is what you want to do. Now, you can either if you don't want to do that, it's fine as well. But basically, if you want to create an open source project out of this, create like your goal should be to create an Android app, or an iOS app. But if you're just doing this as a challenge or something, just to learn, you can use Python and a GUI. So you can use PySimple GUI for the GUI. If just because I recommend it, it's really easy to use, and the vision that I had with this is that there should be one soundboard app for all soundboards. There shouldn't be a bunch of soundboards for different things. There should just be one soundboard, and you can install plugins for it. And yeah, part of this job project is also you have to specify a design for other users to create sound packs, so that it actually works. You don't want to create a soundboard. Yeah, it's not just a simple soundboard for one thing. It's a soundboard that supports other soundboards. Got it? Let's move on. Next is create your own game using PyGame. So I said OOP, so this means object oriented programming. Now, Python's not really an object oriented programming. Oh, yeah, no, it's not really an OOP language. So that's why PyGame is something that actually makes you use OOP just to organize stuff better. I have created a article on how to create menus in PyGame. So you can look at that to, make sure your menus look really nice if you plan on open sourcing the project or displaying the project. And you can see in this video of my game that I made and how it looks. You could either read this article for it, or I also have provided the source code for my game. You can take a look at how I made stuff here, even the other stuff. As you can see, I have some outdated stuff here. I gotta update the website. I believe that I have to get rid of some stuff. Here we go. There we go. So yeah, you can take a look at the source code if you need to do some stuff. It's really easy to run with Python. Anyways, the next task is to turn one of these projects into an executable. I suggest you do this project if you created the game, the soundboard, the this thing, the blur, the image blur, one of those three projects, then you create the into an executable. If you're using PyInstaller, do not compile it to one file because the performance will be really bad. I don't recommend it. And if you're using the program, use sys.exit instead of quit, because if you actually quit is not a safe exit method, it's just a helper in Python. So if you want to use something in production, you always want to use sys.exit. So import sys and then sys.exit. Now you can use either PyInstaller or SixFreeze. For my music player, I used PyInstaller, but for my game, I use CXFreeze. In my opinion, I'm not exactly sure what to say. You know what? I don't know which one I recommend to you because I use both. I like both, but I think PyInstaller is a bit better, a bit more sophisticated. Six Freeze does things really simple. There's no extra features to it, and you have to manually, you have to specify which modules not to include in the compiled packet and the compiled binary. So that's the downside of it. With PyInstaller, it ignores most of the packages that aren't used, but you can still provide an ignore list. So use PyInstaller, but you can use SixFreeze if you want to copy my game. So if you're using something like PyGame, then use SixFreeze. Anything else, just use PyInstaller. If you want additional difficulty, use InnoInstaller to create a setup installer so that you get something like this. If you look at this release, there's only one exe, and it's an installer. It installs the game. It's not one file from PyInstaller. The last thing you want to do is create a build script to automate the building and the installer. And one thing to note is that, speaking of automation, for if you're using CXFreeze, I've created a Stack Overflow answer somewhere on how to ignore packages that aren't being used so that you can create the smallest binary possible. But I'm not going to link that. You can just find that on Stack Overflow. I have provided a CXFreeze example here from the game. You can just go one of these things. I think it's called setup.py. It's called build.py. It's called build.py here. No, it's not. Is it? Yeah, it's called build.py. Yeah, as you can see, I've automated the build process. So I use a version from the main file and I set the version in the ISS file. And I ignore some packages here as well. And I run cxfreeze at the bottom. So yeah, if you want to just learn like that, you can do that as well. It's not a big deal. Now this is another project of varying difficulty. I suggest you do this if you actually have a use case for a bot. You most likely don't, otherwise you would have probably thought of it. But anyways, you can make a Discord, Telegram session or matrix bot. Sorry if I'm yawning. The easier ones are Discord and Telegram. The hard ones are Session and Matrix. I don't even know if it's possible for Session, and for Matrix, it's as good as it's as good as not possible. They're not easy to use, mostly because the documentation lacks a lot of things. So learn Discord or Telegram bots. They're your best bets. And some backstory is that one of my earliest projects was a Discord bot, and I think I stopped using it last year or something, or 2 years ago. Yeah, last year or something, because I just gave up. Like, there's not much to use it anymore for, and yeah, and I said, okay, all these features not really useful anymore. I've outgrown them. And to add even more stuff is that Discord changes their API and or restricted what bots can do. So you have to a lot of development effort that went into the Python bots were really they went kind of down the drain, because a lot of refactoring had to be done then. And the guy that created the Python discord.py module that every bot was using, it kind of just like the project died basically because he didn't want to rewrite his project again. Lastly is a very practical and even money related project you can do. It's basically an automated YouTube channel that will post cringy TikToks or any other subreddit. Basically, I use cringe TikTok because I think 2 years ago or something, in 2020, I saw a video of a channel that all they did is post TikTok compilations, which got me thinking you could create a bot, like a script, that will download 10 minutes worth of videos from a subreddit like TikTok cringe a subreddit about videos, by the way, and you'll download the videos you haven't downloaded before, and you can use a database to keep track of the videos you've already downloaded. You can either keep track of the hash or something, or the not the hash, sorry, the Reddit URL, or the post ID, something like that, and stitch the videos together using something like FFmpeg. I'm sure there are Python libraries as well to do that. Okay, and upload video to YouTube using YouTube APIs if possible. This is optional. It's not really important anymore. You've done the hard part. So if it's possible, find the YouTube API that will let you upload the video and autofill the video details. And lastly, this is again hard, auto generate the thumbnails using Python image library by taking screenshots from through random videos and adding some nice looking font text saying the title of the compilation and the compilation number. You'll have to keep track of the compilation number somewhere. And to start, you can self host it using cron job or task scheduler to run every day. But if it turns out to be profitable for you after a couple of months or something, you can deploy the app to DigitalOcean and like just go to sleep or just hibernate for the rest of for a decade, because TikTok might be cringy, but I don't think people are gonna stop using it, even if it's bad for social conditioning. Okay, so if these projects don't interest you and you want to work on something even bigger than this last one, contact me directly, email me, because I don't want to share the other project ideas I have. They aren't necessarily Python related either. Comment down below if you want to see something from me on any of these projects or need help. Anything, I'm available. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.